Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
The UN Security Council has failed due to US veto to adopt a draft resolution presented by Algeria on behalf of the Arab group demanding the General Assembly the admission of the State of Palestine as a full member of the United Nations. Algeria's permanent representative to the UN, Ambassador Ammar Benjama, has said in New York that Algeria will come back stronger with the support of the General Assembly and the members of the United Nations in favor of full membership for the Palestinian state in the UN. And several countries and international organizations have called for restraint following reports of an explosion in the Iranian city of Isfahan caused according to Iranian army by suspicious object. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail from Radio Algeria International. First, the UN Security Council failed yesterday to adopt a draft resolution presented by Algeria on behalf of the Arab group recommending to the General Assembly the admission of the State of Palestine as a full member of the United Nations. The text received 12 votes in favor, 1 against the United Nations veto, and 2 abstentions. Algeria's permanent representative to the United Nations, Ambassador Ammar Benjama, said on Thursday evening in New York that Algeria will come back stronger with the support of the General Assembly and the members of the United Nations in favor of fully fledged membership of the Palestinian state in the UN. Said Bougaz has more details in this report.
In a speech made after the American veto of the draft Security Council resolution tabled by Algeria recommending the admission of Palestine to the UN, Ambassador Ammar Benjama called on those who were unable to support the admission of the State of Palestine today to do so next time, considering that the overwhelming support for the admission of the State of Palestine sends a message that could not be clearer. The State of Palestine has a legitimate place among the members of the United Nations.
To all those who voted in favor of the resolution we submitted, the overwhelming support for the application of the State of Palestine sends a crystal clear message. The State of Palestine deserves its rightful place among the members of the United Nations. To those who were unable to support the admission of the State of Palestine today, we really hope they will have to do so next time when the Security Council will reconsider the question of admission of Palestine again. Yes, we will return stronger and more vocal, and we will back it by the overwhelmingly majority of the General Assembly of the United Nations.
On this occasion, he recalled the words of the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, who assured that Algeria's efforts will not cease until the State of Palestine becomes a full member of the United Nations.
Madam President, as President Abdelmajid Tebboune of Algeria has said, Algeria's effort will not cease until the State of Palestine becomes a full member of the United Nations. I thank you.
Earlier on Thursday, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf, insisted in an address to the Security Council meeting on the need to grant Palestine full membership in order to save the two-state solution and preserve peace, stability and security in the Middle East. Ahmed Attaf said that the two-state solution is now facing a moral danger, adding that to save it before it is too late, Palestine must be granted full membership in order to preserve peace, stability and security throughout the Middle East.
And the Palestinian presidency has strongly condemned the United States' use of its veto power in the United Nations Security Council, effectively preventing Palestine from obtaining full membership in the UN. Describing the U.S. veto as unfair, unethical, and unjustifiable, the Palestinian presidency emphasized that this veto defies the will of the international community, which strongly supports Palestine's full membership in the UN. It said most of the world's countries have recognized Palestine since 2012, when the UN General Assembly voted in favor of upgrading Palestine's status to a non-member observer state. The presidency reiterated that this aggressive U.S. policy towards Palestine and its legitimate rights present or represents a blatant violation of international law. It fosters Israel's ongoing campaign of aggression against the Palestinian people in Gaza, the West Bank, including occupied East al-Quds, and pushes the region to the brink of an abyss. The permanent representative of the State of Palestine, for his part, to the UN, Riyad Mansour, underlined or described if the UN Security Council would grant more time to the Zionist entity to count more or to commit more crimes and carry on its genocidal plan.
And do you know what Israel needs to implement this delusional plan? The plan to evict the people and to annex the land? All it needs is more time, more immunity, and more lives and blood. What will the international community do? What will you do? You, the International Security Council that is charged with the maintenance of international peace and security, what are you going to do? What will you do?
What are you willing to do?
Will you give Israel the time it needs to annex Palestinian land? Will you give it the immunity to evict the people and kill them? Will you give Israel the weapons to kill more people? Will you give Israel the right to veto our right to exist on our land, to veto the Palestinian state's right to full membership in the United Nations? Palestine's membership in the United Nations is not symbolic. It is a matter of great importance to Palestinians and to the peoples of the region at this very sensitive time.
That was the permanent representative of Palestine to the United Nations, Riyad Mansour. The G7 heads of diplomacy have expressed their opposition to a large-scale military operation in Rafah and the Gaza Strip in Palestine, while denouncing the unacceptable number of civilians murdered in the Palestinian enclave as a result of the current barbaric Israeli aggression. They said in a filed communique issued at the end of their three-day meeting on a small island of Capri that the Israeli aggression against Rafah would have catastrophic consequences for the civilian population, reiterating call for a credible and logistically practical plan to protect the civilian population in Rafah. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf, has held talks with Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, as part of his working visit to New York. The meeting provided an opportunity to review the developments in the Palestinian question and exchange views and analyses on the prospects for relaunching the Middle East peace process and speeding up the establishment of a sovereign and independent Palestinian state as a just, lasting, and definitive solution to the Arab-Israeli conflict. And the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf, has held two bilateral meetings with the Brazilian counterpart, Mauro Vieira, and his Jordanian counterpart, Ayman al-Safadi, on the sidelines of his participation on Thursday in the Security Council's high-level open debate on the Palestinian question, according to ministry press release. The two meetings provided an opportunity to examine the latest developments in the Middle East and the efforts being made to put an end to the Zionist aggression against the Gaza Strip. And the Embassy of the State of Palestine in Algiers has welcomed Algeria's decision to make a $15 million additional contribution to the budget of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East, UNRWA, according to a press release from the embassy. The Embassy of the State of Palestine in Algiers expresses its sincere thanks to the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria, President, government, and people for its decision to make an additional contribution to the UNRWA budget of around $15 million. And the representative of Guyana at the UN has stressed the importance of UNRWA's mission as the only lifeline for the Palestinians who have been constantly under an Israeli barbaric aggression since the 7th of October last year.
The latest cycle of violence against the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip has created a crisis of catastrophic proportions. It may take generations for the consequences to be addressed. Guyana reiterates its call for an immediate and sustained ceasefire in Gaza, as demanded in Resolution 2728. Without a ceasefire, humanitarian efforts in Gaza will not have the desired impact of alleviating the suffering. We stress the importance of additional routes into Gaza to scale up humanitarian relief and call on Israel to immediately implement its decision in this regard without impediments. Guyana also underscores the importance of the work of agencies providing critical support to the Palestinian people. In this regard, we stress the importance of UNRWA as an indispensable lifeline for Palestinians. We further stress the need to ensure adequate funding for UNRWA.
And the UN Secretary General has warned the Security Council that the Middle East is on the brink of a precipice of a widespread regional conflict and denounced the humanitarian hell created by the Zionist aggression on Gaza. The UN Secretary General made his remarks during a high-level meeting of the Security Council on the situation in Gaza, attended by several foreign ministers from the region. The details in this report by our colleague Saad Bouazi.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has deplored the dangerous escalation in the Middle East fueled by the ongoing Zionist aggression on the besieged Gaza Strip. Antonio Guterres denounced the Zionist operation in Palestine in the strongest possible terms, reiterating his call for an immediate ceasefire and unimpeded access for humanitarian aid. He described 2 million Palestinians enduring death, destruction, the denial of vital humanitarian aid, and hunger. Antonio Guterres also expressed concern about the explosive situation in the occupied West Bank, calling for de-escalation after more than 450 Palestinians, including 112 children, had been killed there since 7th October 2023.
But apparent progress in one area is often cancelled out by delays and restrictions elsewhere. To avert imminent famine and further preventable deaths from disease, we need a quantum leap in humanitarian aid to Palestinians in Gaza. Food is essential, so are clean water, sanitation, and health care. Delivering aid at scale requires Israel's full and active facilitation of humanitarian operations, including through a functioning humanitarian notification system and improved and direct communications between humanitarians and military decision-makers on the ground.
The UN Security Council failed yesterday to adopt a draft resolution presented by Algeria on behalf of the Arab group, recommending to the General Assembly the admission of the State of Palestine as a full member of the United Nations. The text received 12 votes in favor, 1 against, the United States veto, and 2 abstentions.
And finally, risk of escalation in the Middle East remains outstanding. Tehran early this morning activated its air defense in parts of the country following reports of explosions in Isfahan province. However, Iran's Tasnim news agency said, citing well-informed sources, that there were no reports of a foreign attack. According to IRNA General Sayyid Abdul Rahim Mousavi, Commander-in-Chief of the Army of the Islamic Republic of Iran, said that this morning's explosion in the sky over Isfahan was related to the firing of anti-aircraft forces on a suspicious object that did not cause any incident or damage, contrary to Israeli rumors and media claims. Numerous countries and international organizations have called for restraint. The UN, through the spokesperson of the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Jeremy Lawrence, urged de-escalation by calling on third states, in particular those with influence, to do everything in their power to ensure that there is no further deterioration in an already extremely precarious situation. With this, we come to the end of this news bulletin. Time now for our weekly program. We'll meet again tomorrow for a first edition of our news bulletin. Thank you.
Welcome to your weekly program, Destination Algeria. I'm Jamal Semeni. There are a number of great destinations in Algeria just waiting to be discovered. A curious mixture of cultures and influences, Algeria has something interesting to see in just about every city. The country is also the first largest on the African continent, so you can be sure that there are plenty of towns and cities to visit. Let's visit Algeria's fascinating destinations, you and I, together. architecture is interesting and diverse, since the country has virtually always been